Starting out as a pet portrait artist and taking on your first commission can be really nerve-wracking. So in this video, I wanted to share some of the tips that have helped me to build confidence as a pet portrait artist. My name is Rachel. I'm a pet portrait and wildlife artist, and I have been doing pet portraits now for about 4 or 5 years. And in that time, I've definitely lacked some confidence, especially when I first started out. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about how to build up confidence as a beginner when you are just starting out with pet portraits. And in the background, we will have a video of a pet portrait, because why not? And it's a little bit more interesting for you to watch. So without further ado, let's get started. So one of the first things I wanted to mention before we get into the tips that will hopefully help build up some confidence is that if you are feeling a little bit anxious about getting started or you don't have the confidence yet, then you aren't on your own. It's not a unique problem to you. And I think the vast majority of artists go through this. It's quite a large leap to go from painting for yourself as a hobby to then putting your work out there for people to see and then for people to buy and putting a price tag on your paintings. That can be a pretty big step to overcome. So if you are feeling that lack of confidence or even some imposter syndrome, you are not on your own. And I think a lot of artists go through the same thing. Even artists that you really look up to, that you think do amazing work, they will have probably gone through the same thing. So it doesn't mean that you're not good enough or your art isn't ready yet. It just is a natural part of the process. Okay, my first tip is going to sound a little bit flippant, but please bear with me because there is a point to it. The first tip to help with your confidence building is to just get started. I know that that is easier said than done, and I do think it still makes sense to do a little bit of research beforehand so you know what you're taking on and you've got a rough idea of what to expect. But it's really easy to get stuck in this loop of procrastinating and making yourself more and more nervous before you actually just get on with the painting. No matter how much preparation you do beforehand, there's always going to be a first commission, a first client, a first pet portrait that you do where someone's paying you for that pet portrait. And that's always going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, no matter how much preparation we do beforehand. And sometimes it does feel easier once you've gotten over that hurdle, and then you can start continuing on with it. You will learn so much more through physically doing the job than you will researching beforehand. And that's going to really improve your confidence, because the more experience you get with dealing with clients and with working on pet portraits for people, the faster your skills going to improve and the more your confidence is going to improve. But if we put it off indefinitely, that is a great way of reducing your confidence in the beginning, because then we get stuck in our own heads and we start making a much bigger deal out of it, and it becomes much more nerve-wracking. So although I do appreciate that it is easier said than done, doing that first one and just getting it out of the way can sometimes be the thing that really makes a difference when it comes to turning things around and really building your confidence as a pet portrait artist. You don't need to wait until everything is perfect and your skill is perfect. If you were doing that, then you could potentially be waiting for a very long time. As artists, we develop our skill continuously, so there's always going to be something new to learn and always going to be a way for you to improve. Even artists who've been doing it for a really long time and to you seem like they've got it all together and that their work is perfect, they will still have areas where they want to improve. So if you're waiting for everything to be perfect, you'll be waiting for a really long time. So it doesn't have to be perfect before you get started. And also, there are lots of people out there who are looking for different things in their pet portraits. Some will want a more polished, finished effect from an artist who's been doing this for a really long time. But for some other clients out there, the work that you're doing right now will be everything that they're looking for. You'll have the right style, they will like the way that you paint. So you don't need to wait for this elusive sense of perfection before you put yourself out there with your pet portraits. So yes. Just get started is tip number 1. My second tip is to paint as often as you possibly can. And this goes for whether you are just starting out, you've not taken on a commission yet, but you're just thinking about it, or whether you've done your very first painting, or even when you've been doing this for weeks, months, or even years. Paint as often as you can, because nothing improves confidence like you improving your skill and being able to see yourself getting better. And the best way of doing that is by practicing and painting really regularly. Now, in the beginning, you might not have enough clients to be able to practice all the time. So that means supplementing those client paintings with your own paintings. And you can do that either by painting your own pets, if you've got a good selection of pets to choose from, or there are royalty-free websites out there where you can find reference images that you can paint. I have used Pixabay in the past, and now I use Unsplash a little bit for additional painting practice. And there's usually quite a lot of reference photos on there that you can be working through. So in between your client commissions, you still get that chance to practice. I think one of the reasons we can struggle with confidence is a lack of experience. We worry sometimes that we're not going to be able to do the painting for a client because we're worried we don't have enough experience with that particular type of pet. And so that can make you kind of lose confidence a little bit because you're not sure you're going to be able to actually do the painting. So the more you practice, the more variety of things you practice, the greater your experience is going to be, and that's going to hopefully also build your confidence. And you can practice quite specific things depending on where your weaknesses are. Sometimes you might do that in response to a client painting. So in the past, if I have done a painting for a client and I thought that was really difficult and I really struggled with that, then I will look at the reasons why I struggled. Maybe it was a particular fur pattern that I struggled to paint. I will look for royalty-free references that really match the client image so that I can practice again afterwards and see if I come up against the same hurdles and see if I can figure out a better way of painting it, so that if that comes up again in the future, I will be better equipped to paint it and I will feel a little bit more confident about painting it because I will have built up my experience. So paint as often as you can, paint a great variety, and paint the things that you struggle with so that it's less of a struggle if a client actually does approach you and ask you to paint that specific thing, because you've practiced it before and you've got a bit of a method now as to how you're actually going to approach that. And hopefully that will help increase your confidence in that area. Something else that I used to struggle with that definitely affected my confidence was the fact that with a commission, clients don't know what the end result is going to look like. So they're kind of trusting you that you are going to be able to do a good painting of their pet. And I always used to feel quite anxious about that because that's a lot of trust they're putting in you to do a good job. It's not like when you've painted something already and you've listed it online and they can see it for themselves and think whether or not they want it based on the actual image. With a commission, they don't know what they're going to get. They're just kind of trusting that you're going to be able to do a good job. And I always found that quite nerve-wracking. So one way of trying to deal with this is, again, going back to that idea of practicing really regularly, but now you're taking all those practice paintings and you're putting them online. So this could be either social media or your own website or a shopping platform. I use Etsy, and I try and list as many recent paintings as possible so that if a client is interested, I can direct them to all of those photos so they get a really good idea of what my paintings look like, and they can decide based on that whether or not they want to go ahead with a painting. And that's going to give them as good an idea as possible of what their painting is going to look like. You want to make sure that all of the images that you upload are current. They are based on what you actually paint like right now. Don't be tempted to include paintings from years ago if you don't paint in that way anymore. You want them to be representative of what your clients should be expecting, so that they have all of the information available to them of what you paint like, and they can make a decision based on that. And if a client then chooses to commission you after seeing all of that work, then they should have a good idea of what it's going to look like. And hopefully that gets rid of some of that anxiety about their expectations. Following on from that, maybe this is tip number 4. I've kind of lost track now. We'll go with that. Tip number 4, following on from the previous one, is to have a site where people can check the rest of your details. So the photos will obviously be a part of that, but your site can also have pricing and size information on there as well. Another thing that affected my confidence when I first started out was this anxiousness about not wanting to tell people prices of things, because I think it's fairly common for artists to feel a little bit uncomfortable about pricing our own work and valuing it properly. And when it comes to telling people the prices of the work, I always felt a little bit nervous about doing that in case they thought it was too expensive or it wasn't in their price range or they just hadn't been expecting that number. The benefit of having a site, whether that is your own website or a platform where you can sell things or your social media, the benefit of having somewhere where that pricing information is that you don't have to have that conversation with people directly if you don't want. So if someone sends me a message and they're inquiring about prices, I can send them a link to my Etsy shop and I can say prices and sizes are on there. They start from this amount, but there's a whole range. Have a look, and then get in touch if you would like to commission something. And that kind of takes away that initial pressure, because now the client isn't obligated to respond. If it's way out of their budget or it wasn't what they were expecting, they can go and have a look. They can say thank you for the information, and if they're happy with it and they want to continue on with the commission process, they can get in touch with you afterwards. And I feel like that took away some of the anxiousness around that particular issue, just having somewhere where all of your prices are listed so you don't have to have that specific conversation. Hopefully over time, this is something that you'll feel more comfortable with. I think it is quite a common thing when you're just starting out and you're struggling to see the value of your own work. Don't undervalue yourself. But over time, I have felt more comfortable with telling people the prices, because I now know how much it costs to do this, to run a business and to buy supplies and to post things out. So I am much more comfortable with my pricing structure now, because I definitely feel that it is worth it for the amount of time that goes in and the cost of the equipment. So I don't feel quite as anxious about talking about it now, but it was a problem in the beginning. So hopefully that will improve your confidence a bit by having a site where you can direct people to, where they can see that information without you having to say it yourself. So the last tip number 5 that I wanted to mention, and then we'll summarize, is to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to do your commissions. When I first started out, I didn't give myself a huge amount of time, because there is a drying time with oil paintings before they can be touch dry and ready to go home. I didn't want to add additional time on top of that, because I was aware then clients would be waiting a long time for their paintings. And so I was tempted to try and do them as quickly as possible so that the whole overall time wasn't really that long. But that put me under a lot of pressure, because in the beginning, it's likely that you will make some mistakes or paintings will take you a little bit longer. I always took a little longer on commissioned paintings than I would on my own, because I wanted them to be right. And that can make you, well, it just puts you under pressure, unnecessary pressure, and that can affect your confidence, because you're thinking, how am I going to finish this in time? Give yourself plenty of time to do the work. You can always reduce your time frame as you go forwards and as you get a bit more accomplished and your confidence increases and you can paint a little bit faster. But early on, give yourself enough time. I think now I have a lead time of about 3 to 6 weeks, which allows for multiple orders at the same time if I have that issue. And that gives me the freedom to paint in my own time without putting myself under pressure. It is hard to build confidence when you're feeling panicked, when something's gone wrong on a painting and you're thinking, oh, I need to start this again and I don't have time to start it again. That's not a nice feeling. Give yourself enough time to do it properly. So if you make a mistake and you need to rework it, or even if you need to start it again, you've given yourself the time to do that properly, and that's relieving some of the pressure so that you can enjoy the process a little bit more. Okay, that kind of brings us to the end of the video. So to summarize, you're not on your own. Getting started can feel like it's really challenging, but it's usually a lot better once you've got over that first hurdle, and your confidence will increase the more you do it. Practice and paint as often as you possibly can so that you're building up experience and your skill level, which in turn should improve your confidence. Have an online gallery somewhere where people can look at your work and they know what to expect. Have your pricing list somewhere online as well. So if you are struggling to confidently talk about your pricing directly with clients, you can direct them to your site where that will give them all the information that they need. And give yourself plenty of time. Don't rush yourself. Don't feel like you've got to do everything in a really short time frame. It takes as long as it takes. Don't put yourself under pressure so that you can work at a nice pace and you can grow your confidence that way. I just want to finish off by saying that being a pet portrait artist is a really rewarding thing to do, I have found, and I really enjoy doing it. And although it was really nerve-wracking in the beginning, I definitely feel much better about it now. I know we've mentioned a lot of the worries of being a pet portrait artist in this video, and I didn't want that to put anybody off, because once you're over that hurdle of doing the first couple or so, it does get better. The more you do it, the more your confidence is going to grow, and you're not on your own. I think it's important to reiterate that all artists, or I would say the vast majority of artists, have gone through that feeling of imposter syndrome or just being a little bit anxious about taking on a commission for the first time. I hope that there has been something helpful in here for you. Let me know what you think. If there's anything that you would like particular advice on, or whether that's pet portrait related or other art related things, let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. I will see you next time.